Good afternoon and welcome to everyone. We're having our public hearing on the City of Rochester's HUD funding, Housing and Urban Development. We will be talking to you today about our 2025 through 2025 Consolidated Plan and specifically about our one-year annual action plan that will be the first year of the new five-year plan. So you'll be hearing from a number of people in the city departments that receive funding from this program. They will be talking to you specifically about accomplishments that we've had in the past and some plans that we have for the future. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions either by typing them in the Q&A box or asking them live. And we will be reporting all of this information out to you and having it recorded in the event that you need to watch it again. We had a live in-person meeting last night. Today's meeting is an online meeting, and there will be other meetings that you will have an opportunity to attend. So I will now ask Henry Fitz to take us into the meeting agenda and the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Here's what we'll be covering today. We will be looking at first an overview of consolidated plan and annual action plan framework that is mandated by HUD for our use of HUD funds. Go over our 4 different HUD grant programs and what they can each be used for. And then finally, we'll be going through each of our program areas where our program managers will go over what our existing programs have been and recent accomplishments. And there'll be an opportunity to provide questions and comments after each of those segments. And then finally, we'll wrap up by discussing next steps for this process and other opportunities for public input. As a reminder for our Zoom users in this virtual meeting, just a couple of the most important functions in the Zoom tool here. There's a closed captions function that you can enable if you so desire down at the bottom right. We will be using the Q&A box down at the bottom for submission of written comments and questions. We encourage you to submit those at any time during the webinar, and we will be responding to those that we can as we go along. If you wish to speak verbally during a Q&A portion, we'll ask that you press the raise hand button, and then we will unmute you so you can provide a comment or question verbally. If you are calling in by phone, you need to dial *9 to raise your hand, and you need to dial *6 to unmute yourself. And then finally, there will be some interactive poll type survey questions that will appear throughout the presentation, and we encourage you to take part in those. So for our background on our HUD funding and this process, so the City of Rochester receives about $12 million per year from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. And that comes in 4 different grant streams: CDBG, Home, ESG, and HOPWA. And I'll go over each of those in a moment with additional detail. HUD funds are an important part of the city's work in terms of our neighborhood and economic development efforts, as well as housing and affordable housing, supporting the city's 2034 plan. And so we are here today kicking off our annual process of public engagement to inform how we budget our federal funds from HUD. And this year is a special year because once every 5 years, we need to do a bigger 5-year planning process for the upcoming 5 years. So 2025 will be the first year of this new 5-year plan. So the public engagement is a little bit more expansive this year than in a typical year. So we're doing things a little bit differently, trying some different methods, some different um, different types of meetings, different hours of meetings, different formats such as Zoom and virtual to really try and get the most public engagement that we can. Another important note that I think may be on people's mind is just the current uncertainty with the federal government and the Trump administration and what that may mean for federal funding and our local HUD funding. As of today, we have not received any official notification from HUD or any other area of the federal government that about what our funding could look like, if there's going to be a cut or if it's going to be stable. So the best thing we can do is just to continue to operate under the assumption that things will be status quo, that we'll receive approximately the same amount of funding that we do in a typical year. And we do need to proceed with this planning effort regardless. It's still a requirement. And we need to make sure we complete this process in order for our fiscal year to begin on time as of July 1st. So we will continue to operate in that manner until we get more official information from HUD, at which time it may be incorporated into our planning efforts, and it would be reflected in the draft plan when it gets published in mid-April. So now over back to the 5-year plan structure and the framework that it provides for our HUD spending and strategy. So this is a prescribed planning process and framework from HUD. We have to do a new 5-year plan every 5 years, and that underneath each 5-year plan is what's called the annual action plan, which is the budget for that particular fiscal year. And then each annual action plan eventually results in a performance report at the end of the year in September that details how we spent the funds and what our accomplishments were. And those are all published publicly and available for review, and we publish public notice about all of those. So within the 5-year plan, it's going to be a very large document. There's several different components. First is our citizen participation plan, which outlines this public engagement process, how we will do public notice, how we will conduct public meetings, how we will inform the public about amendments to the budget and things of that nature. So that will be an important component to refresh as we publish this new plan. The next 2 pieces are market analysis and a needs assessment that look at demographic data for housing and economic issues in the community. And the intent of that is to help us revisit where we are as a community, what our biggest issues are, and how that information may inform our strategies with our spending of HUD funds. So we're excited to be working on a pretty comprehensive housing study that will be published alongside the 5-year plan. And that is going to have a lot of great information for not just this effort, but other efforts. Next component would be the 5-year strategic plan, which provides the framework for, okay, so we know what our biggest problems are. How are we going to address those? What are our goals? And how are we going to align specific projects and initiatives to achieve those goals? And again, as I said, this 5-year plan will also contain year 1 of this 5-year cycle, the year 1 annual action plan. So it will contain the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And we are doing the kind of a combined public engagement around that budget, as well as the larger 5-year plan. The name Consolidated Plan is just important to note that it consolidates the planning of all 4 of our grant streams under one umbrella, one strategic umbrella, where I think at some point in the past 20 years ago, that wasn't the case, and HUD instituted a more comprehensive planning process. So zooming in a little bit more on the 25-26 annual action plan, a component of the 5-year plan that will be covering our upcoming fiscal year that will begin July 1st. And it will contain the budget for how we will propose to allocate our HUD funds that we anticipate receiving in the upcoming fiscal year. And again, it ties back to those goals and strategic framework of the 5-year plan. It will also, of course, include, be informed and include a summary of public input that we received through this process. This table provides a summary of our recent grant award history from HUD and shows, again, those 4 grant streams: CDBG, Home, ESG, and HOPWA. And then you'll see below we have what's called CDBG program income and Home program income. Those are funds that are returning to the city from repayment of loans that we've given out over the years for either business development or housing development projects. As those loans get repaid, those funds return to the city, and they're still treated under the same regulations as they were when we first got them, and they're reprogrammed, rebudgeted, and put back out into new projects. So the columns towards the very end on the right show what we're anticipating in terms of our allocation changes compared to last year. Again, the best information we have right now is bills that proceeded through very early stages in Congress as of July 2024 and then didn't go anywhere. So that's the best information we have at this moment as to what our allocations might be. And until we have better information, those are the estimates we'll be working from. According to those estimates, 3 of our programs will be the same as last year. But the 4th, the Home program, is expected to receive a fairly significant cut. Again, this is a cut at the total federal level. The federal government allocates a certain number of billions of dollars to the Home program nationally, and then we get a piece of that total. So far, it appears the federal government would be allocating less to the Home program nationally. We are offset a little bit by projected increase in the program income areas down below due to some loan repayments. So that does help a bit. Another important piece of context is just to note that, while these are important funds for the city's work and help us do some, serve some very, very key critical services, they are less than 2% of the city's annual funding in a given year. And so we encourage anybody attending this session, to also engage with the city's public engagement around the operating budget and capital budget for the rest of the city's spending, because there's a similar process for that. A lot of other important spending decisions to be made on the city's operating budget side. All right, so now I'll take you through just a brief overview of each grant type that we receive and what it can be used for, and some of the other kind of restrictions that we operate under. CDBG is our first and largest program. It's also our most wide-ranging in terms of eligible uses. It can be used for housing type activities, both rehab as well as services related to housing stability. It can be used for business and economic development, job creation type activities. Can support public facilities and infrastructure improvements. It can support demolition. and blight removal, youth services, uh, other types of public services, and then of course a portion we retain to help pay for the staff that oversee the use of these funds and the planning and reporting and compliance that goes with them. In total, we receive about 8.2 million in new grant funding per year from HUD, plus an additional 200 to 400,000 of program income. In addition to those eligibility categories, there's an additional layer of eligibility that we have to consider, which is called the national objectives. And so every CDBG activity must meet one of these three categories. The first and most common being benefit to low and moderate income persons. That low and moderate income persons is a specific definition from HUD that is related to the number of people in each house in the household and the total household income. And you compare that to the area median income. And if you make at or below 80% of the area median income, you would qualify for a HUD funded program. To make that more concrete, we got an example would be a 3-person household earning no more than about $70,000. That household could qualify for HUD funded program. So we must spend at least 70% of our CDBG funds each year on activities that benefit that population, low and moderate income persons. The second category is prevent or eliminate blight. That category is we primarily use on demolitions of blighted structures and dangerous structures that need to be taken down for public safety reasons, or they're just in serious poor condition. We can spend no more than 30% of our CDBG funds on those activities in a given year. The third and final category would be meeting urgent needs. And this category is really limited to situations where there's been a official declaration of a natural disaster or a state of emergency. So we don't typically utilize that. And the only time we've really utilized that was during the COVID pandemic, when we were utilizing some special COVID CDBG funds for COVID response. Otherwise, in a typical year, we do not utilize that category. Next, I'll go over the HOME program, Home Investment Partnership Program. It's our second largest grant stream. As compared to CDBG, HOME is a lot more focused in on housing. So it's really exclusively housing construction or rehabilitation of new affordable housing, or it can be used for home buyer assistance, down payment assistance, or construction or rehab of homeownership units. And then finally, program administration for overseeing the use of these funds and associated compliance. We receive about $2.5 million per year from HUD in new grant funds, plus about another $200,000 of program income. Next is the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS, or HOPWA, our third largest grant stream. This is very specific use for assisting households with at least one person who is experiencing AIDS or HIV, and it supports their housing costs to get housing, stabilize housing, and then associated services, including health services, to support those households. We have only two local providers who have qualified to provide such services: Trillium Health and Catholic Family Charities. And those two agencies receive roughly 50% of the grant each year. We receive about $1 million per year in new grant under HOPWA. Finally, our fourth and smallest grant stream, but perhaps most important, is the Emergency Solutions Grants Program, or ESG. This supports specifically services and supports for households experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And we support activities in the community that provide street outreach, provides emergency shelter for homeless, rapid rehousing, get people into into shelter, permanent sheltering, homeless management information, the system that coordinates across our entire homelessness system for placements and data tracking, and then of course our administration and tracking of these funds. And we received about $700,000 per year for the ESG program. All right, at this time, I will take any general questions about the consolidated plan, our public engagement process that we're launching and going through, or about HUD, HUD funds on a general basis. Otherwise, I'd ask you to keep more specific questions to Q&A period that we're about to have after each presenter who are going to be presenting on specific topic areas of our HUD funded programs. Any general questions? Feel free to click the raise hand button if you'd like to speak verbally. And I don't see any written questions so far in the Q&A. Last call on that, Stephanie or Highland Planning. Do you see anything? All right, I see one raised hand. Could you
Judy, go
assist?
ahead.
Yes, thank you for this presentation. Can you just clarify, obviously, you got the pot of money coming in that you're projecting with and it sounds like you're projecting you're going to be getting less money. Just walk that process through. I'm not quite clear what happens next. Once you get a clarity from the federal government is it April, might not get as much money. What happens again to all these categories?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at the phase of the process right now where we're collecting input from the public about what are some of the biggest issues in the community, and that will inform our strategic planning. That will eventually result in the draft plan that's published in April, and that plan will contain the budget of our upcoming fiscal year. And so we hope to have further information from HUD before we publish that draft plan, because that, otherwise the numbers in that draft plan will be entirely based on estimates. We do often, in cases like this in the past, we can publish a draft plan using estimates and include a specific procedure for how the final budget will be calculated once we get the final numbers from HUD. So that's a process we may have to do this year. But in terms of the funding, how the funding works and allocations from HUD and the federal government, Congress needs to pass HUD's annual budget. They have not done so for the year that started October 1st of 2024 yet. So they're quite behind. Once HUD's budget has been approved, HUD does a formula calculation for every city who is in the CDBG and entitlement grant program to determine how much grant funding we're going to get. And that's based on factors like population size, poverty rate, and things like that. We get a pretty consistent percentage of the national allocation each year. So once Congress has passed that budget bill, we'll have a much better sense of what we'll be getting. Until that time, we'll have to proceed with the best information that we have. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I appreciate your thoughtful response.
No problem. Thank you. Any other questions on general? Okay. So next, we are going to have my fantastic colleagues who are program managers for specific areas of our HUD-funded programming to each present about their area and recent accomplishments and what they do. And so, this is your opportunity to learn a bit more about what we do with HUD funds. It's also your opportunity to provide specific comment on your perceptions of what's going on in our community. What are the most critical issues you're seeing in your community? So there'll be as we said before, please provide written comments and questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A box. And then after each brief presentation, there will be up to 5 minutes for verbal Q&A. And so we'll pause after each presentation to do that. That would also be the time to submit any comments pertaining to that specific topic area. Okay, so with that, I'd like to introduce Dad Schofield, who's our Director of Business Development, to talk about our economic development efforts.
Thank you, Henry, and good afternoon, all. CDBG funds are important for our business development division to help every type of business, our small businesses, some of our larger ones. We help businesses in every single quadrant of the city, including downtown. We try to attract businesses to our area with three primary goals: create and retain jobs, increase investment, because when businesses spend dollars within the city of Rochester, that spending and that disposable income will help other businesses. So it's very important to us. Lastly, assist businesses that provide essential products and services to our community. We're always trying to help those businesses that make a positive impact for our citizens and our residents in the city of Rochester. Our CDBG funds are primarily assisting two different programs. There are small business grants that help anywhere between $5,000 to $8,000 per business with advertising, computers, signage, furniture, fixture, and equipment that's not installed, and security equipment. These are essential items that many businesses need, and we help lower the cost of doing business in the city through this program. Some of our larger items are our regular loans and regular low interest loans and grants. These can also be used towards equipment, renovations, working capital, whatever we can do to make growing in the city of Rochester a positive experience. And again, lowering the cost of doing business in our community. Some recent businesses that we assisted: Abundance Cooperative Market, Sabrino's, Estrella Tax Services, Passion Nails, Samita Ethiopian Restaurant, Kessin's Catering, and Major League Cuts. Many of those received our small business grants that help them have those required tools such as computers, signs, things that they need to operate on a daily basis. For our CDBG funding only, we assisted 16 businesses with 20 jobs created and retained. $327,660 were allocated for the 2025 programming year. Our goals and objectives for the remainder of 2025 is to continue to stimulate economic growth, create and retain jobs. It's something that we do on a daily basis. Supporting significant projects. We're working with one very large clothing manufacturer that's a high employer of city residents, and also a technology company who anticipates moving into downtown Rochester. Both have a significant number of jobs retained and also project creating additional, more significant jobs. So these help our economy, and we use our programs to the best of our ability to, help our community and help the businesses grow, at the same time lowering the cost of doing business. Our loans are often much lower than what standard financial institutions have, anywhere from 1% to 5% interest rates. and we do whatever we can to make a positive difference. So that's a brief overview. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
I'll ask our Highland planning friends to unmute folks to speak if there are speakers.
Judy, go ahead.
Yes, are any of these funds go toward any of the vacant business structures that are throughout our city right now, on particularly our major corridors?
That's a good question. Thank you, Judy. Unfortunately, we can only use these funds where there's a business that exists. As soon as there's a business that plans on moving into the facility or relocates to a facility, that's where we can use these dollars. CDBG funds have a job creation retention component that if a building is vacant, there are no jobs being created or retained. So we can only help when there's a business ready to move in. And often we'll use our programs to try to attract a business to the location. But unfortunately, we do need a business to exist.
Right, any additional questions for Thad? I see a question in the Q&A. Are there any businesses that Rochester needs or would I guess I don't understand the question. Are there any businesses that Rochester needs or would be if the community?
Is that in regards to what businesses we really need? Is that what the question would be? And there are. I mean, we're always searching for different businesses that provide essential products and services such as grocery.
Sorry to interrupt. I was trying to type real quick. Yeah, the question was, are there any businesses, because to the previous question, I do see a lot of vacant buildings and stuff, and I'm like, oh, that would be a good idea, but what would be put in there? So my question is, are there any businesses currently that Rochester would need or that would benefit the community? Sorry, I was trying to type fast.
No, I appreciate that, Dan. Thank you for the question. And absolutely, yes. You know, we're always thinking positively about grocery stores, pharmacies, drugstores, things that have essential products and services, hardware stores where people and city residents can walk and shop. That's near and dear to our hearts. There's a lot of competition for that. So we do everything we can to try to, level the playing field and make a difference where we can attract them to those sites. It's an ongoing effort, and it's very competitive. We've had communities give a lot of different types of assistance to compete for the same businesses, and it's something we do very regularly. So great question. Thank you.
Great. All right. Last call for questions for Thad.
We have one more. I'm just trying to find this. Let's see here. Oh, Dan. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, not to hijack the whole thing here. I guess my question would be is, if you are somebody who has a commercial property, and again, you're looking to put something in there, but you don't have a business, could you work with the city and say, hey, if I started this business or brought this business to the community, can we then talk funding and grants and stuff?
Yes, if a business was prepared to move in, Dan, if there was a commitment by the business, because we need to have, with CDBG HUD funding, there has to be a job creation, job retention component. So it can't be a speculative investment. It has to, if you said, Thad, we've got this business who's ready to move in, these are the number of jobs you're going to create within the next year, 2 years, 3 years. This is what the project involves. So if there's a commitment from a business to move in, that's where we could come in and partner and help play a role. And a lot of times we're really gap funders, Dan. It's not, we generally don't provide all of the funding if we can. If the economic development benefits are strong, meaning if there's a good job creation, then we would normally work with the business owner who would have an equity contribution. We would give a proposal what we feel we can do, and then often a bank is involved as well or others. So the long answer is yes, if there's a business committed to moving in or there's one already in there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, in my scenario it would be, hey, I'm considering starting this business or considering bringing it in here, but, can I get a little help, whatever? Yeah, you got to have a business plan and show what you're going to do. So that makes total sense. Appreciate it.
Great,
Just
thanks.
maybe give that this grant or whatever would give that push to, hey, I'm going to take that leap to come over here or start that thing. So,
Yeah,
okay, appreciate it.
if they were committed to moving in and there was evidence of that and they were creating jobs, yes.
All right, Thad, we have another written question. It says, can these funds be used for capital costs like office build out?
Yes, absolutely. Sarah, we can use for build out. We have to, every project is different. It's almost like putting a puzzle together, Sarah. Once we know what is involved with each project, we often look at a sources and uses statement, where the funding is coming from, what it'll be used for, and we do our best to help where we can. Some of our funds are better for build out, some are better for equipment, some are better for working capital, but we would work closely with the business owner identifying where they potentially can be used to the best of their ability.
Excellent. All right, again, last call for questions for Thad. All right, thank you very much, Thad. We appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, next, I'd like to introduce Erica Hernandez, who's the Director of the Neighborhood Service Centers, to go over their work and what they do with CDBG funds.
Thanks, Henry, and good afternoon, everyone. So happy to be here today and talk about a program very near and dear to our hearts in the Neighborhood Service Centers, which is our street liaison program that is funded through these funds. And so through this program, we have a quadrant-based model where liaisons are able to go out into major commercial corridors and really support business growth, economic growth, much in support of our business development partners and operators with boots on the ground efforts of these liaisons going out to commercial corridors. So, for example, commercial corridors include West Main, Lyle Avenue, Joseph Avenue, South Clinton, Thurston, Chili, right? So citywide, with the criteria of low to moderate income census tracts. And they work in partnership with each of our neighborhood service center administrators, as well as our business development team, and most importantly, the business operators on these corridors, as well as the business associations, to help get information out about city resources, community resources, help them in terms of support for their associations, association meetings, and help with support and communication amongst these groups and amongst these operators. And so for this current fiscal year, we had $90,000 allocated to this program. And so that was distributed amongst the four quadrants. In 23-24, we were able to assist over 500 businesses in terms of these visits, the resources, the meetings, the conversations, different activities and events that associations come together to put on. And so we really look at this as boots on the ground, some type of and technical and process support to our operators out there. We know over time, our economy, our corridors, all those things change. And so the desire is to have these individuals support during these times. And so that's what they do. We go out and we have these liaisons help out in these corridors and in these quadrants. And so I know some of you on this call have gotten to work alongside them, and we're very proud of the work they do and grateful that through this funding we're able to serve this need.
Great, thank you, Erica. We'll now take any questions on this topic area for Erica. Questions or comments? We also accept Any comments pertaining to this topic area?
Not everyone at once.
Judy says it's a great program and should be kept.
I couldn't agree more, Judy. Thank you.
All right, last call. Feel free to raise your hand or provide a written question or comment. All right, thank you, Erica. We'll move on to our next section. So now I'd like to introduce Conrad Floss, who's a principal community housing planner with our contract services team to talk about rehab and demolition.
Hey, thank you, Henry. Again, my name's Conrad Floss. I've been working for the city for many years now and operating the housing repair programs and the demolition program in part. So I'm here to talk to you about our repair programs. So when we think about our housing repair program through the block grant, our priorities are always to do our best to reach those areas that are in the greatest need. From in past years, we've had what's called a targeted rehab program where we offer resources and assistance to areas in around places of high city investment. We do that whenever possible. We also, every year, very important to undertake a planning process to take a look at our program delivery systems to make sure that they're effective in reaching the population in which we are tending to serve, and find weaknesses in those systems and to make updates to our policies and procedures so we can be as efficient as we can. Along other priorities, childhood lead poisoning is always a priority. That this is something that we've engaged since 2003, and we continue to prioritize lead hazard control efforts in all our housing repair programs, and in to reduce the incidence of child lead poisoning. While it has come down over the last 10 years, it's still not eliminated. So we work to do whatever we can to further reduce that incidence level. And then lastly, the general priority to help those that need repairs to their homes. It's no secret that Rochester has some of the oldest housing stock in the nation, and it's obviously not getting any younger. So it is a priority to try to address those needs in the best way that we can. The programs that we operate, we have a standard repair program, the owner-occupant repair program, that is designed to address lead-based paint hazards, health and safety issues, and address code violations in properties. And in past years, it's typically been offered through a lottery process. What will happen with our next program, I am unsure at this point until we have directions from the administration. We have an emergency assistance program that is that's really one of our staple programs that we offer throughout the year to address broken furnaces and hot water tanks offered to owner occupants. And coming back one step to the rehab program, we do offer a standalone lead hazard control program that is just specifically for identifying lead-based paint hazards in 1 to 4 unit privately owned properties. In all our programs, there are requirements that you have to meet certain income requirements, and that we do ask that the property is compliant with tax payments from the city and the county. And if you are not at the time of application, that we would work with you to get on a tax agreement wherever possible. With the demolition program, the funds are always limited, and the idea there is to stabilize the neighborhoods by removing blighted structures that serve, as an eyesore and a cancer to neighborhoods. We work closely with our code enforcement staff to identify those structures. that come to us, and we take, we referrals from the community about problem properties and vacant structure or properties that should be demolished. Do I have another slide? Thank you. So those are numbers that we have put out here for the property rehab, 121 homeowners, one rental. I might be asking why one rental. Most of the rental properties are covered through our lead hazard control program that is funded outside of this funding stream through direct funding that we receive through the Office of Healthy Homes and Lead Hazard Control. So the abundance of the block grant funding has been spent on owner occupants. And for the CDBG, the block grant program for demolition, we've demolished 72 buildings. And those are the numbers. I won't read those off to you. They're on the screen there of what we have spent. So I see we have a question from Sarah. I was a recipient of a rehab grant and was transformative for me. I would not have been able to purchase my home. Okay. Thank you, Sarah, for your kind words. Do we have other questions, comments? Judy?
Go ahead, Judy.
Yes, I see that demolition is almost twice as much as money that you're putting into home ownership. Were those 72 buildings, were those houses or were those large commercial structures?
It runs the gamut.
First
It's a
question.
little bit of everything. It would be residential properties up to large commercial structures. Yes.
Is there thought about flipping that so that there's really, and I've raised this issue in other other hearings about putting more money into owner occupied and emergency assistance and less into demolition? I mean, I don't know what your thought. I'm interested in the thought process because it's really almost $1 million more you're giving into demolition as opposed to stabilizing people in their own homes.
Well, we also what always is the trick here are the emergency demolitions. We just don't know when those are going to come up. We had a very big demolition project over one of the industrial sites. The address escapes me, Dana. I think you may remember this one. It was a $1 million demolition just for that alone. So while we can try to plan for dollars for certain demolition activities, we just don't know what's going to come out of left field with the emergencies, which are always going to be the priorities. We have to deal with those right away for health and safety reasons.
Yeah, thank you for your comment, Judy. Any other comments or questions for Conrad? Last call. All right, we have another raised hand.
Go ahead, Dan.
Hi, me again. Sorry. So kind of basically back to I believe her name was Judy. Have you guys? I know she's looking more on the owner occupied side, but just from another standpoint, have we considered with those homes that don't maybe necessarily need to be totally demolished, there's plenty of investors and other things in the area that would, take over those properties at a, extremely low rate and obviously be able to get those houses back into a living order. You guys would increase tax revenue. I mean, is there any kind of like portal or system for something like that? I mean, obviously certain ones that are beyond repair need to be demolished, but for those single family homes, rather than reducing the size of the, available homes in the city.
I'm sorry, what could you narrow down the question?
Yeah, have you guys considered putting those homes that maybe are on the demolition list but could be, rejuvenated
Yeah.
on, some kind of portal where, someone could buy them as their single family home or an investor could take it over and rent it out or fix it up or something, kind of lessen that burden from the city and, but still have a positive outcome.
Yeah, the city has a disposition process. When a property comes into our possession, it can take a few routes. Now, these would be going into areas that I don't necessarily oversee, so I would ask my colleagues to jump in if I'm saying anything wrong here. But when a property comes into the system, we take a look at it. A lot of them come in through tax foreclosure, and they can be sold, okay, at the auction, or they can go to our land bank, or they could be made available to the Rochester Housing Development Fund Corporation for rehab. They're not necessarily going to be demolished right away. Um, but in cases where they are just too far gone or we do not have interest in them, they're demolished. But it's not, they are vetted to make sure that anybody interested in purchasing them or rehabilitating them, that, those options are put out there.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, we divert and try to put back into use as many structures as we possibly can. I think the ones that get demolished are beyond the point of that they're salvageable, unfortunately. I see a comment asking, will the city be continuing to support the Josana neighborhood plan this year? I guess, Conrad, is there any targeted work in the Josana area still going on?
I'm not aware of any targeted work specifically for Josana this year. When we do plan for the rehab programs, we do take a look at, areas of greatest need, but obviously those funds are so limited that we're not able to reach every area. But to answer your question directly, no, there isn't anything directly planned.
Great. Any other questions? Last call, questions and comments on this topic. All right, thank you, Conrad. We appreciate your presentation.
You're welcome.
Next, I'd like to introduce Sarah Scott, who is the Director of Programs and Park Stewardship with our Department of Recreation and Human Services. Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, great. Thanks everyone for being here today. So real quick, the City of Rochester's Department of Recreation and Human Services, a good chunk of the CDBG funding that we receive goes directly into youth programming, specifically youth employment and career development programming, as well as civic engagement through our Youth Voice One Vision program, which is the Mayor's Youth Advisory Group, as well as some of our programs around environmental stewardship and making sure that city youth have connections to the natural environment, whether that's in parks or in the neighborhoods in their communities. You can see here from our accomplishments from 2023-24. So the city has both a summer employment program, so that's called our SOUP program, our Summer of Opportunities program, where youth are employed as young as 14 years old. They can receive a stipend, 14, 15-year-olds. And then older youth, high school youth, are actually able to get employed and receive a paycheck. And they're placed both in city departments as well as in community organizations. And we also have opportunities for youth to do school year work as well. Our Rock Paint Division program is an awesome program that I happen to just have the luck of overseeing. It's a mural arts program where youth are trained by professional mural artists and they get to install murals around the city in eligible locations, including recreation centers and libraries. We also have a good amount of youth that come through the system, and these can be city Rochester school youth or charter youth or homeschooled kids that come through employment training. So learning how to write a resume, learning how to interview, learning about job opportunities through apprenticeships and field trips and placements with some of the local businesses. We also have a steam engine Rec on the Move program, which is our mobile rec program. So we have several stationary rec facilities, which I hope all of you have visited and participated in programming at. But we also have a mobile program that does science, technology, engineering, and mathematics and arts education in parks around the community where kids might not know about rec programs or families might not be familiar with rec programs. It's a way to make sure that kids that aren't being engaged and families that aren't being engaged at our sort of libraries and brick and mortar facilities, so to speak, are getting information about all the great programs the city provides. And then our rock music program which is honestly, I think, a world-class program that's training youth as young as 6 years old. They start with strings, so violin, cello, moving into trumpet, all the brass instruments. I'm not a musician, but um, and also we added a new course where youth can actually learn music production. So they're creating their own beats, they're recording. We have a music studio at one of our rec facilities. So that's all the ways that CDBG funding supports the Department of Recreation. And you can see there, you can read for yourself all the numbers that are reached. The other piece, funding for our city's Youth Voice One Vision. So this is really about engaging youth to be leaders. They already are, but this is kind of providing some structure and mentorship to youth that want to be more engaged with what's happening in their community, at their schools, and in local government. They do service projects. They actually host meetings at city council chambers where they have their own kind of youth council. They're going into the rec centers and libraries and schools, getting youth voice about different issues that are facing the community, and they're bringing that directly to city leadership. They actually meet with the mayor and his leadership team and hear about how youth feel. They will weigh in on how we use our CDBG funding, how we approach our consolidated plan. They'll weigh in on the budget process as well. And then we also have in the past used CDBG funding to improve our playgrounds. So anytime we do a playground project, we're able to use CDBG funding to actually implement. We've recently completed a new playground at Norton Village. We currently have an ongoing project. We'll break ground hopefully this spring at Martin Luther King Jr. Park. And then we have a large project happening at Maplewood Park, if any of you are familiar with that area, near 104, where we're going to be putting in a nature center and the city's first real nature playground. And that's all funded in part through CDBG. And you can see the breakdown and allocations there. A lot of this funding, that $403,000, that's directly funding that's going into the hands of youth in the community through their work. Some of it supports staff time. So a good variety of programming. And, I think it goes without saying, hopefully we're able to continue this allocation and hopefully HUD sees the light and continues this funding because it does a lot of important work with youth and community through our department.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate your presentation. We'll now take any comments or questions on this topic area. The written question, what percentage of city youth are involved in these programs?
I would probably have to get back to you about that. I mean, there's so many touch points, whether it's through the youth employment program, which ourselves in Rochester Works hire youth. So hundreds of youth are employed in the summertime. You can sort of see here some of the engagement in Youth Voice One Vision. We have, 12 rec facilities with ongoing programming year round. So there's lots of different touch points for kids. It probably would be hard for me to, in this conversation, give you an exact number, but through our partnerships with other nonprofits, teen empowerment, the city school district, I would say a good portion of youth have an opportunity to be engaged, whether that's through employment, through sports, through community service projects, etc.
And we will be documenting all these questions and comments, including the responses. So when we publish that, we'll include the more official figure that we can work on with Sarah.
I just want to say one thing to the question, just in terms of the funding is like to your point earlier, Henry, this funding is for low mod income areas. So the projects that we do are focused in those neighborhoods. There are a couple areas that are ineligible for the funding. So these projects are really targeting playgrounds and, mural installations and public art in neighborhoods that might not otherwise have those amenities. So that is a requirement of the funding, and we take that very seriously.
Right. It might be more accurate to say what percentage of eligible youth participate in such programming. All right, we have a written question from Judy or comment. Love the variety of ways the funding is used to engage youth and to employ them. Thank you for that positive comment. All right, last call on questions or comments on this topic area. All right, seeing none, thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. We appreciate it. Next, I'm going to introduce my colleague Linda Hedden, who's the assistant to the manager of housing, and she's going to take us through several different sections here on our housing programs and affordable housing development. Linda, go ahead.
I am Linda Hedden with the city's housing division. We are a team that addresses a wide range of services and programs and projects to try and meet the need of citizens of Rochester. And Henry's recognized folks as program managers, and I would just want to say that we have a team that is dedicated to this full complement of funding sources, but we also have a couple of experts. So I will not be by myself in responding to questions depending on what it is that you want to know more about. The funding sources that the city has, that the housing division is able to utilize that are, directed to us as a federal source include community development block grant funds, which you've been hearing about, the wide range of services that other parts of the city administration are able to use to meet the needs and vision of the community. In addition, housing has home investment partnership program, housing opportunities for persons with AIDS funding, as well as emergency solution grant funds to assist us to meet a wide range of services in our community. We do not do any of this work independently. We work with partners. We work with development partners, service providers, feedback from the community to try and make a difference in many aspects of people's living circumstances. CDBG provide decent housing, suitable living environment for low moderate income households. Those are households up to 80% of area median income. And we are able to use a small percentage of the CDBG funds to provide a wide range of services in partnership with those service providers who also receive funding and resources from other entities besides the city of Rochester to serve our community, and we're grateful for those partnerships. You can see the 5 programs that we have been funding pretty regularly through the years. Our foreclosure prevention services, which works to assist folks to stay in their homes that they own, or if it's not possible, for them to transition away from homeownership in a way that doesn't do any more harm or challenge to what their situation is. We provide services for aging in place so that seniors are allowed to age in their home, be safe, and stay in their community, which is very important. We also provide funding for landlord and tenant services to assist both tenants to understand their rights and responsibilities, as well as to work with landlords to help them understand their rights and responsibilities, as well as to seek information on good practices, ways to handle challenges. The resources also assist tenants to get some legal representation if need be, so that they may have some support to help them navigate what might be an unstable living condition. Additionally, we provide legal services for seniors in a number of ways in connection with a not-for-profit partnership to allow seniors to access resources to help them take care of things like wills, healthcare proxy, other legal needs that they might not be able to have the resources to pay for on their own. So if we could go to the next slide. Kind of gave you a preview. We had almost $500,000 in last year's funding. Almost 200,000 of that went to program administration for our home Rochester program management. We'll talk a little bit about that in our next slide. Landlord tenant services, senior legal services, foreclosure prevention, and aging in place. again, looking to help maintain and improve housing stability for low and moderate income households. The Home Investment Partnership Program really focuses in on housing units in one manner or another, whether it's to assist people to be able to live in an assisted housing unit, whether it is to help rehab it, or to become a homeowner, or to sustain homeownership. Last year, for this year, actually about $2.5 million, $350,000 to a Chodo organization, and that's a set aside that is a requirement from the HUD funds that 50% of our annual allocation be dedicated to work with a local entity and to undertake projects that result in housing units. In addition, funds for administration and our affordable housing fund, where we utilize resources to assist in homeownership, construction, rehab, and sale of vacant homes, either on the rental front, development of affordable rental housing, or also rehabilitation of existing affordable rental housing to sustain that and continue to have that be a resource and support for our community. Also, we provide funds for homebuyer assistance. With the way the market has been in the last couple of years, it's been very tight. It's been very challenging for folks who are low moderate income to be able to compete successfully and purchase homes in the city of Rochester. As a result, we had not needed to put funds into this year's budget because we still have unspent funds from prior years available, and our programs have not stopped during that time. Our accomplishments from the previous fiscal year, you can see here, one large rental project was completed. Another large rental project was rehabilitated, and we successfully assisted 37 low moderate income home buyers to purchase homes, whether they were brand new homes, recently rehabilitated homes, or homes available on the private market. Another of our funding resources is Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS funds, and that's to support and provide assistance to households that have someone in their household experiencing either HIV or AIDS. And as you can see, 131 households were assisted last year. And then our Emergency Solutions Grant. This is also an allocation that the city receives annually based on the formula. We use these resources in combination with the community through something called the Continuum of Care. And our funds are combined with, theoretically, Monroe County funds in a community-wide, county-wide plan to assist folks who are either homeless or experiencing the threat of homelessness, to help them to become provided with services to assist them with immediate needs, whether that's a place to stay overnight or whether it is resources to assist them to be able to apply for and reside in available housing. So a wide range of services, outreach to folks in the streets, providing other aspects of support in connecting. There is a one point of entry system that the county and the city have to assist folks who are in that crisis situation to try and, as effectively as possible, access available shelter as quickly as possible. Last year, over 2,000 persons were assisted.
All right, thank you, Linda, for your presentation. And now we will take comments or questions specific to these topic areas that Linda just covered. And welcome you to provide written comment in the Q&A or raise hand to speak verbally. Not seeing any so far. We'll just give a last call for questions or comments on this topic area. All right, seeing none, we will continue through. And it's back to me. Thank you, Linda, very much for your presentation. And again, thanks to all of our subject matter experts who presented. We appreciate your time today. So I'll close out the presentation going over some next steps for our public input process leading up to the start of next fiscal year and other opportunities for engagement. So, we're here at the top of this chart. Our first public hearing of phase one here. We had a,
Are you,
yeah.
are you, I don't see your screen share right now.
Oh,
Is anybody else missing it?
I do
No,
see it.
I see it.
I see it.
Yep,
Okay,
yep,
I
we see
apologize.
it.
It's on my end then. I apologize.
no problem at all. So we've just had our first hearing, and we, officially launched this public engagement campaign in late February. And phase one will quote unquote close as of the end of March, when our survey closes. We currently have an online survey open for the community that we've been promoting, and you can find that on our webpage. So again, this phase one is all about gathering input from the community about perceptions of the biggest issues and priorities for use of our HUD funds. So we encourage you to participate in that survey and to promote that with your circles. And then phase two will launch as of April 22nd, when we will publish the draft consolidated plan and annual action plan for a 30-day public comment period. And so in phase two, we're asking for input in response to that draft plan, specific things in that draft plan, including the budget, including the strategic framework, including the data and demographic data that we present. And so during that 30-day period, there'll be another public hearing. Again, we'll have both an in-person version and a virtual version like this one that will cover identical content in both versions. So we welcome you if you want to participate in that. That will take place May 22nd or 21st. And there'll be more information on our webpage on how to participate in that. An additional public notice will be issued on April 22nd, just announcing the launch of that phase two 30-day public comment period. After the public comment period closes, we will synthesize all of the comments received, make any final adjustments to the draft plan, and it will be finalized and approved by City Council through the City Council approval process. There will also be a City Council public hearing for their process June 12th, if you'd like to participate in that. And then that will conclude with the plan being approved by City Council on June 17th. And then we submit it to HUD in time for our fiscal year to begin on July 1st. So that's what we have coming up. Again, lots of opportunities to continue to engage in this process. And we encourage you to promote this to your friends and family. Important contact information and links. So we do have an official web page that we've created for the 2025-29 consolidated plan. It's cityofrochester.gov/consolidated plan 2025. So that's where we'll be publishing, all of the information here about public input opportunities, where we have our link to our public survey that's open right now. You can find a link there to sign up for our email list if you'd like to ensure you get all of our updates and public notices. When we post official plan documents, that's where you can go to find them and download them for review. And of course, recordings and slides from meetings like this that we'll post after the meetings. So you can refer back to those. So please check that page out. These slides will be posted there in the coming days, and bookmark that page for the future, because that's going to be an important page for the next 5 years for all of the associated plans and public engagement for the next 5 years. In terms of contact info, you can always reach out to myself and Rita Rajka, and she and I are the primary leads here overseeing HUD funding, planning, and compliance. Of course, we work closely with all of our wonderful colleagues throughout the city who are doing more of the day-to-day work on programs. But Rita and I can be reached at hudfunding@cityofrochester.gov for any questions or comments, or if you want to submit official comments, we would accept them at that email as well.